Hi, my name is Timm, Director of Education Safety with the Legion. Thanks for listening to The Changing Face of School Security. In this special National Safe Schools Week edition, we celebrate our partnership with Safe and Sound Schools. It is an absolute joy to have three of my favorite people with me here. Missy, Molly, Michele, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
And this is really a sort of a remix of sorts. It's new, but you've all been guests before, and so it's going to be great. And I want to begin right with where we are here in National Safe Schools Week. And Michele, I'd just like to start with you. What does it mean to you, National Safe Schools Week?
So the word that always comes to mind for me is refocus. It usually hits us at a time in the school year where we're starting to get our groove. The kids are back. Classes are moving along. We've got the routine, and it's just a great opportunity for everybody to kind of take a breath and refocus on how important it is that everybody is safe and sound so that we can get to all the good stuff we've got planned for the year. So refocus for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Missy Dodds, what about you?
The word that comes to most with me on National School Safety Week is to rethink. I always enjoy being able to see, reminding parents, reminding the community, hey, bus safety matters. Hey, cold weather matters. So I think it's a really great, exciting way to show the community they're involved as well. But we all have a part and think outside the box.
Well, and I greatly appreciate that we've not talked just about sort of the main security kinds of things here. I think that's an excellent way to set a tone here. And we've got Refocus, we've got Rethink. Now, Molly Hudgens, there's not going to be any pressure to come up with an R, so you just lay out whatever you'd like to lay out.
I don't have an R for you, but I will say that I think when I think about National Safe Schools Week, I think about all the facets of safety. You know, as a society, I think we focus a lot on the physical safety of our students and our schools, which is obviously very important. But I think also about the mental health piece of Safe Schools Week and really focusing on where our students stand in terms of their brain health and how they're progressing at whatever age they are in school, developmentally and physically and emotionally. And sometimes those things can be really difficult to navigate at this age. So I think more about the mental health piece when I think of Safe Schools Week.
Well, and that's a terrific segue because I wanted to move next into, just for the sake of the listener, I hope everybody knows Molly has just finished another school day. And talk about being on the front line and talk about mental health. You're talking about Molly Hudgens. Molly, if you could, please share one thing that's on your heart about school safety presently.
Well, I think one of the problems that comes to mind is just that it's still a topic we are still addressing. You know, many years have passed since we first had incidents of violence in schools, 100 years almost. And I think for me, it's really looking at how in our students and our communities in some ways have become somewhat desensitized to school violence. And that's always a concern for me. We spend a great deal of time at the beginning of the year, both in August and September, doing lessons with our students to talk about threat assessment and to talk about reporting and things of that nature, because we want them to understand it's important to pay attention to those around them and the things that other students may be facing and to let an adult know. Because in some ways, with social media and the internet being so readily available, they're very quick to share information they get with all of their peers and anyone else that they may have on a social media platform, but they're not as quick to let an actual adult know who can intervene and help in a situation. So I think my concern is that if we don't keep this on the forefront and we don't keep having these conversations, that people are just going to become more and more desensitized, which is what we don't want, obviously, to happen.
Yeah, and I love the whole theme of awareness, and I want to give Michele and or Missy an opportunity to talk a little bit about that level of awareness, because we all wish that it would be maintained, and we all feel disappointed when then we visit a school or see a situation where it's not being maintained. And then, of course, the worst is when it's been exploited, and on the back end, we're just heartbroken because it possibly could have been avoided with awareness. Either one, I would love it if you would speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll take it first, and maybe Missy can chime in. I think it kind of goes back to Missy's word of rethink. You know, at Safe and Sound, we live and breathe by our comprehensive school safety framework, and that's a whole lot of words to say the team, right? It really does take a team, and when you look at our success stories that are happening in schools every single day. I mean, Molly just had 3 today. You know, she's exhausted, but she had 3 success stories. And that happens when everybody is aware and working together. And so rethinking school safety is really about engaging everybody. And so when we look at our comprehensive framework, it is about that mental health piece that Molly described, as well as the health and wellness piece, as well as the physical safety and security piece, as well as the leadership and law focus that's kind of driving us and keeping us headed in the right direction, the operations and emergency management piece, and then, you know, also that culture. And I think that's what is at the heart of awareness. When we all share in it from whichever vantage point we have, whatever skills and talents we bring to the work on the team, it's really about engaging everybody and maintaining that. And so I think that's one of the things that's so special about taking a week and really honoring that work and honoring everybody's role on the team and this constant culture of safety that we're aiming to build in our schools and communities every day.
Yep. Excellent. Missy, would you like to add to that?
I kind of go 2 ways with that. One, yes, awareness. Yes, having students speak up. I think that's something that really broke my heart is when I realized that 39 people knew about my school shooting and they even told adults. And so that is a guilt that I feel like we've had to live with for 20 years. Also like awareness about, actually what I was going to say was that was on my heart today is about culture, climate, and community. My own kids are at their age of middle school, high school. And so it's really becoming very important that we fit in, that we, you know, and I'm really starting to watch and notice, you know, do they have their trusted adult at school? You know, who are their friends? Can I let them go out? And so that culture, climate, and community piece, watching, one of mine is starting into sports at the middle school level. So that's like a cool thing to go, you know, cheer and yell. And so watching the community come in, and I think that's so important that we build up the kids to let them see that they are a part of something bigger. And that's that has been on my heart this week. And then I have to say, I'm really proud of our school district for taking it to the next level. We have unified games, so everybody participates. And so I feel like bringing the community together around the school, because no matter what's going on in the world, we can all agree that we really want our babies taken care of and we want them safe and sound.
Yeah. That's excellent. And I was at a 9-year-old boys soccer game just recently, and I'm a yeller, just so you know. And so Kai is my friend's son who I root for, and the whole time, as you can imagine, this full set of lungs is you know, crying out, "Go get him, Kai," and all the rest. And so, but Missy, I think the listeners would want to know: are you a yeller?
I am that mom. I'm very small. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. It bothers them. But yes, I have been told by my other kids while we're watching one kid that I need to hush.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, listen, only when we begin to talk about the ref, that's when we need to hush. Yelling for our kids.
Maybe not. We want fairness in the world.
That's exactly right. Okay. Molly, I'm going to return to you because Michele mentioned, and we had a little bit of conversation before this started about some success stories just from this individual day. And I don't want to put an ounce of pressure on you. And of course, I'm not asking for any details at all, but could you walk the listeners through what you mean by success story?
Well, I think this year at our school, our principal, I have an R word for you. She developed the word relentless, and we wear these bracelets every day, and we're going to be relentless. We're going to go one more round for our kids every day, and they're going to go one more round for each other. And so one of the things that we have implemented is ensuring that our students have ways to report things to us in a wide variety of ways. And one is an incident report. And we are 6 weeks into school. We've gotten 86 of those. So the kids report not only things that they're concerned about or they need to report, but also things they're excited about or they're proud of. And it also gives them a chance, to brag on others who do things that are good. So we're very proud of that system and the fact that works so well. And today we had 3 different incidents that were reported to us where students were mostly out of frustration, I think, not necessarily a genuine threat, but they were making statements that they know they shouldn't say. And so when those things happen, it gives us an opportunity to talk to the kids individually and to talk about what they've said, what that sounds like, how that lands on the ears of others who hear it, and also about how it can affect the people around them. So we try to use those situations still to create teachable moments. And I think that worked well today. We are fortunate to have a wonderful administrative team, and our assistant principal does a fantastic job really of getting those kids in, and while addressing what she has to in terms of discipline and consequences, also giving them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. That's really what school is about. Not only the content that we're giving them, because that's very important, but them understanding that their safety is most important to us. Taking care of them is second, making sure their needs are met. And if we can do both those things, then we can educate them. And so it's important that they play a part in that too. So yeah, some good end of the day, long day, but a good day.
Well, good. And thank you for everything that you're doing. We so appreciate it. The example is wonderful. I'd like to move to another question. And this is because Molly, you mentioned administrators and what a tone is being set with that whole topic of being relentless. I just love it. But sometimes we get concerns about administrators as well. And I know none of you have concerns about your local administrators. So let's just put that to the side for a second. But administrators in general, what's one thing, and Michele, I'm going to start with you. What's one thing you wish administrators were addressing more effectively?
So because it's so specific to setting, geography, what's going on in the community, I would say the one thing I wish they all were paying more attention to is the fact that they have or should have a team. It should not all be on their shoulders to carry this mission of keeping our kids safe and sound. And Molly illustrated so beautifully that the power of engaging our students in this work. And then Missy talked about how heartbreaking it is when our students are speaking up. They are aware. They are bringing these concerns forward. And when the adults don't know where to go with that, it's very often, I think time and time again, I look at Missy's community and our community. We can look back with the hindsight that we have now and realize that it's not that adults didn't want to help when kids spoke up. We hadn't created the proper systems and that integrated team so that, kids can report their concerns, or parents or community members. It goes to someone who then knows where to take it, and I would say the same for our administrators. I think far too often, because they are carrying so much on their shoulders for our school communities, they may feel, oh my gosh, this is one more big problem I have to solve, and the best administrators I think that all of us, Molly, Missy, and I have ever worked with are the ones that really understand it's all about a team. If we're talking about, successful academic outcomes or social outcomes or safety, whatever it happens to be, it's all got to be addressed in that team fashion, that collaborative, cooperative fashion. And so I think I would remind our administrators that, just because we're talking about safety, doesn't mean they shouldn't be leaning on the same skill set here and tapping into a multidisciplinary team. And if it's not put together, let's do it tomorrow. Let's get on it. It's fun. It's engaging. Our staff have all kinds of great ideas. Our community members want to contribute to that team. So yeah, I'd say the team is where I would start for all of our administrators.
Well, that's great. I'm going to ask you to not role play here, but almost, because there are certain people in this world in those positions who are very unlike me, a recovering perfectionist, who feel like they thrive in a situation where they're in control and may even believe that they have shoulders broad enough to carry this by themselves. How if you said, oh, well, here's a resource, you could put together a team, but I might not want that. Mm-hmm. How do you get into the kitchen of somebody who is trying to do it by themselves?
Wow. I think you touched on a couple of really important things. One is the perfectionism. A lot of us that work in schools, I'm just going to throw us under the bus a little bit, are very perfectionistic, I'm just going to say a little controlling as well. We want it done our way. We want to know how, every step of the way. Want to control that process. And I think there's that. And then there's just the reality that you can't be successful that way. And I always use the analogy of the football team, for example. You can throw in whatever team you want. But whichever team you're rooting for, they are not going to get to the Super Bowl. They're not going to get to the World Series. They're not going to get where they want to be. The reason that they're playing this game, unless they work together as a team. There is no one quarterback who can, carry that team to the Super Bowl. There's hundreds of people behind, that quarterback. Everybody has to be doing their part, and everybody has to be really well aware of where the talent is and where the expertise is. And so it is a temptation that we see all too often. And I'm guilty of it, just like everybody else in this conversation. But I would just say, the success, the goal here, the Super Bowl here is safe and sound kids, right? And we can't have that if we try to do that with one person. You can't. You really need your special teams, the folks who have specialties. So you have to be working in that multidisciplinary fashion to be able to get to where you want to go, whether it's pride or perfectionism or control or
bad attitude, whatever.
Yeah. Just turn, take a breath, recognize it when you're falling into that, because we all do, and lean back in the team, because we have so many wonderful people in our communities that want to see our kids safe and successful.
Thank you. Now, Missy, first of all, I'd like you to tell us what team to root for. And then second of all, what's one concern you wish administrators were addressing more effectively?
Well, I will always be a Razorback fan, and we know that, and it has been very hard. But I think going with what Michele has said, I really like, realizing that you're not the only one that has to carry this burden. And that kind of leads into my biggest issue with administrators from time to time is trust. You see, I'm sending my most precious gift to God, from God to you every day. And I need validation when concerns are raised. I need to trust. I need to know that you do have their best interest. You want them safe. And they do. Administrators are just like teachers. They have amazing hearts. That's what they want for their students and their schools. But I think sometimes we work so hard in not letting parents in, denying, there's an issue. Well, we're not going to talk about that issue. Or, I don't know, maybe something you see at school. It could be as little as, maybe the parking lot is not as safe as a parent. And I think that's one thing. Sometimes administrators, they just take it as though that's a gripey parent. Then when there is a situation that comes up, I like to see administrators be prepared enough to get out in front of the situation. I'd much rather get a call or an email or whatever notification system we're using from the school to tell me than to read about it in chit chat on Facebook. Because honestly, nothing upsets a parent more or a teacher more than to read Facebook and all the comments. And I think a lot of issues when it comes to safety can be taken care of if you are open and honest. I know our school's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And it's okay for you to have incidences. I mean, look at what Molly was amazing to do today. And, I think as a parent, being able and hearing what Molly did today would totally build even more trust in the school system for me personally, going, wow, there is the adult. There's somebody that's on top of this. And so I think the communication has to be open. You have to be open and honest with your parents and your community at large.
And when Missy's and Michele have mentioned this team, I think about how here, when we have these reports, they don't just come to me. There are 5 of us who get them, and then they're dispersed depending on what the situation is. And sometimes we work on them together as a unit, and sometimes we involve our SROs. So that word is just so crucial in looking at how we make sure all the bases are covered, and we know who is going to address which situations when they arise. I think that's very crucial.
Yeah, and Molly, I'm glad you weighed in, because I was not wanting to make you a victim of alliteration, but Michele said team and Missy said trust, and here we are at your turn again. What's one concern you wish administrators were addressing more effectively?
Well, I'm going to go with train the students. I think that our students are our most valuable stakeholders. And if you want to know what I think administrators don't always recognize, it is that we do an entire lesson with our students. We just did this in the past few weeks, and this came from our school safety, from Safe and Sound. I'm going to use the toolkit that I think works the best. And we talk to our students about tips for safely reporting. We talk to them about what to report, because believe it or not, kids don't necessarily know that. So we walk them through the 10 pieces of that. You always report concerning behaviors. We talk about what that would look like in a student, about safety and security violations. And we brag on them for things like, hey, several of you reported today there was an issue in the restroom with one of the urinals, and that's going to be addressed by maintenance, but thank you for paying attention to that. So we talk to them about safety, the safety of the building and security within. We talk to them about reporting bullying and also cyberbullying and the difference between the two. We talk about obviously reporting anyone who talks about self-harm or suicidal thoughts or ideation, and the importance of standing in the gap for other students who may not feel as if they can do that. We talk to them about reporting any kind of animal abuse. Kids don't always think about comments that other students make or posts they make concerning animals being an issue, but we talk about how important that is. And obviously violence. If they see someone try to harm someone or actually harm them with any part of their body, they need to report that. And we even talk about disproportionate reactions. When you have kids who have an extreme reaction to something that most other students would not see as a big deal, we tell the kids, hey, you need to let us know about that. You need to talk to us about theft or vandalism on campus, and of course, any kind of abuse. And we talk about one of the keys that Safe and Sound has with this particular slide that I use is that you can do that anonymously, because I do believe that a lot of students, if trained to do that the proper way, will do that because they know that there's probably not going to be any repercussions. And I think that's why we're so successful in having things reported to us. The kids believe that we're going to read it. They know we're going to talk to them, and that they know some kind of action is going to take place. Now, we have to condition them. They're not always going to see the results of that report. We can't always call them in and tell them what happened, but it's important that they do that. So to me, if administrators would understand the importance of training their students, because I tell the kids, this is lifelong things that you report. This is not just something you're going to report while you're a student in middle school, high school, or college. You're going to report this even as an adult. Someone may need help, and you may be the person that can rise to the occasion to do that. So training our kids is very, very important.
It's clear why you are so excellent at your job. Thank you very much. Yeah, I remember when my daughter was in middle school and was being hassled on the bus, that she reluctantly shared it with me. And when I told her I was going to do something about it, she pleaded with me to not, because she was thinking about repercussions. And I sat her down next to me and I said, watch how we're going to do this. And I called the school and I began the conversation by saying, I'm not going to share my name. I'm not going to share my daughter's name, but we're having an issue on the bus, and I'm wondering what kind of actions you might be able to take. And so my daughter saw all of how to make a report like that, and the school was amazing at being able to handle a situation like that, which, by the way, was addressed that very week. And not everything is a success story like that, but I sure appreciate what you're saying and how you're guiding us. Missy, I'm going to start with you this time. As a mom, please share some advice with parents who may be concerned about the safety of their children at school.
When I get asked from different parents, friends out in the community, how do you feel? What do we do? And I think one of the first thing that comes to mind is to know your protocols. Know your school's protocols. And that's an easy one because that can do a lot of stress, lower stress levels. Again, if I know what different words and different actions mean when I, when I see it on Chit Chat, I'm not as upset. I think another one that I really like too is with parents, as you were just talking about, speaking up. But I like to encourage parents to do it in a way that you may not, if you have an issue, you may not know the solution to the issue, but you go in with your willingness to help fix the issue. And I think that makes a huge difference when it comes to, your conversations that you may have or questions you may have, because no school is going to be completely 100% at all levels at all times. So if you're willing to be part of the solution, I think that builds, trust, that culture, climate, community again. And then finally, I think one of the biggest, and I learned this in parent training from Safe and Sound, and I've used it ever since, asking my kids who their trusted adult is at school. Mm-hmm. It's so amazing to ask and to see who my kids come up with. And again, since we're in that middle school, high school age, it's very important to me that they have somebody they can go to. And so I love suggesting that one to parents, hey, just ask your kids who their trusted adult is. Plus, it also helps you, if my child doesn't have one, I might need to, help, see what we can do. Everybody needs their person at school.
That's great. Molly, I'm going to ask you the same question as a mom. Please share some advice with parents who may be concerned about the safety of their children at school.
What I always tell parents is you have to remember I'm working in our school and my child is attending here at the same time. So I promise I'm going to be on top of safety. If you have questions, please email me, call. I'll be glad to do that. Be willing to communicate with your child's school, not in such a way that you're accusatory or a way that makes them feel defensive, but just in a way that you're asking very specific questions. And then talk to your kids too. Let them know the school can't share everything with you, as a child or as a parent, but they will share what they can when asked directly. I know that we always do. And reminding, your children too, that we're going to conduct drills at school. Nationally, we're required to conduct fire drills and tornado drills and intruder drills. Some schools call them safety drills, and explain to them, as I always tell our kids, the odds are none of these things are ever going to happen here, but we're going to practice them because we know that we will do what we're conditioned to do in the times of a crisis. In other words, we'll do what we have practiced doing. So we're going to practice these. Sometimes we may have a drill day and we'll do all three. And so give the kids a chance to talk about those and ask questions. And then if there's something that they ask or they point out when they come home about their school and you're just not sure, reach out. And I always say that it's not always easy to necessarily contact the counselor. And of course, the teachers have very few breaks during the day, but reach out to the school resource officer, reach out to the counselors. If your school has a social worker, those are really great liaisons who can a lot of times answer those questions and do that in such a way that the parent will feel as if their question has been addressed, but they also won't give information that maybe they can't share as part of their school safety team.
Well, Michele, I just want to point out that Missy said protocols and Molly said practice. And so there's no pressure here, but I would like you to answer that same question. And then if you would, I know so much is happening at Safe and Sound Schools, and we've mentioned some resources here today. If after you answer the question, if you would please also share one new initiative or resource that listeners should know about.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try with the P's, but it's a stretch. Provide. So a lot of parents, like this is how I met Missy actually, is she was reaching out to Safe and Sound concerned and just wanted to provide assistance, wanted to provide support for her kids' school community. And many of our parents want to be able to provide that support. As she said so beautifully, there's really no one more important in her life than her own children. You know, she wants to make sure that they're safe, and she wants to make sure their peers are and the staff. It's just what we hope for, right? We want to create this environment where everybody can thrive. So I think given that a lot of our parents come to us with that intention, we want to be prepared to receive them in the best possible way. I would say for parents though, getting educated first is a really important first step. I know that with Missy, she thought we were crazy, but we were like, hey, can you, before you do anything, before you come charging in with all your great ideas, and all the solutions that you have in mind, let's just learn about the landscape. They might already have this and that and the other, and they just haven't maybe done such a great job of being transparent about that or sharing that or involving you in this process as a parent. So I would say a really nice way to reach out, and this kind of lends back to a little bit of what Molly was saying, is just, hey, safety is really important to me. Obviously, right? You have my baby. Or babies. So how can I learn more, and how can I support safety here? I'm available. I have connections. I have time, talent, treasure, whatever that may be. I just want to support you. I want to know how I can support you. And so I think that opens the door in such a great way. Ideally, you're going to be connected as a parent to some of those points of contact that Molly mentioned. Perhaps it's the school counselor. That's always a really nice way in. The school nurse, the school secretaries, the SRO. These are really nice ways in, because many times those are the people serving on this safety team that we want to build. You might even be offering as a parent, how can I help and support the school safety team? Who's my point of contact if I want to learn more, or if I have a question, or if I have a concern? What's the best way to raise that? We know as parents how very busy all of you are, and we don't want to be bringing this to someone who is already overwhelmed or has a million other things on their plate. So, help us. And I might like to be a liaison. I might like to be an ambassador. I might like to be somebody who's at the bus stop and able to correct some misinformation that might be circulating. I'm available to you. And there's a lot of people like me that want to help and support the work that's going on. So I think going in ready to offer, but I would caution our parents to wait and not come with something specific. A lot of times I think we see a problem, we've got the solution, and we want that solution to be carried out. And maybe that's not the best solution. Maybe that's already been looked at, or maybe we have that. So really just taking some time to get educated, know the landscape, and begin working your way in and proving yourself as a teammate. Somebody who can support safety. I think it's just such a great way to become more plugged in and active and involved and trusted as a member of the team.
Thank you.
So you asked me to share one exciting thing. I'm going to riff off a little bit of what Molly said about the importance of training students. We three ladies, there's just nobody more important to us in the building than students. And we also recognize that they are our most valuable and powerful team members in this effort to keep our schools safe and sound. And so as we think about training students, we're so excited at Safe and Sound. We have a new program called Staying Safe, and it is a student safety training. Missy mentioned protocols and the importance of knowing your protocols as a parent, a staff member, a student, whoever you are in the community. And I think we've done such a good job. I just want to celebrate that and be grateful and thankful for the hard work that everybody's been doing across the country, nailing those protocols down, making sure everybody understands, should this happen, this is our protocol. These are our actions, right? The work that's been done there is so tremendous. And a shout out to the I Love You Guys Foundation for really spearheading so much of that education and training across the country in our schools. The Staying Safe program aims to take that another step further and really help us to look beyond those school-wide institutional protocols for crisis and prepare our students and our staff for a moment of imminent danger or an active and present danger or threat. What are your options to be safe that you can take with you wherever you go? Outside of the school, as Molly mentioned, the school is the least likely place that we are going to see one of these crises unfold. But we know, unfortunately, that there are many other settings where these types of crises or even acts of violence are much more prevalent. The place of work, where we're hopefully sending our kids one day, out into the community, the grocery store, the house of worship. All of these places, unfortunately, are increasingly more fraught with some of these types of crises. So what are we doing to give our students and our staff members that safety mindset and those tools in the tool belt? So that program's real exciting. It's really amazing to see what happens when we trust students to have these conversations. We hear their great ideas. We grow those amazing instincts and that knowledge and that skill set that they really already have. We're just validating it and acknowledging and helping them to hone their safety skills so they can be safe wherever they go.
Well, Michele, Missy, Molly, thanks so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for your efforts to keep schools safe. Please subscribe to the podcast today and share it with someone who will benefit. For any questions, feel free to reach out to us via our podcast email, k12podcast@allegiant.com. Please include the name of the podcast episode in the subject line. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Paul Timm PSP, on Twitter @SchoolSecurity, or on our Allegiant social media channels. Thanks for listening and stay safe.